Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 3 of X-Force, written by Jeffrey Thorne, but before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now with that said, this issue opens with a giant golden man by the name NUKLO rampaging through the streets as the soldiers struggled to stop it. But, no matter how much he explained, Sage just let Forge know that he used a poor choice of words to explain his analog. Following that, Forge attempted one more time to explain himself, and it went as follows. He built the analog to mirror the lines of dimensional, magical, and electromagnetic forces around the world. Normally, the lines form a stable web, but lately not so much. For something is causing some of the lines to break, hence the term fracture nodes. Now, a fracture could be a person, an event, or even both. But, if a fracture grows past a certain point, then the effects become irreversible and apocalyptic. Trillions of nested data streams, folding in and out of stacked dimensions. Now all that data at once becomes hypnotic and pings both Forge's and Sage's mutations. So with that explained, Forge then went on to tell Sage that he recommends that she never looks at a cosmic cube, because if the analog is pinging her, then the cube would be on a whole nother level. But anyway, Sage then went on to ask Forge if the fractures were random, escalating, or cascading, to which he responded by saying he didn't know, for when he sees a problem, Forge just knows what machine he needs to build to fix it. So Forge built the analog to point out fires so they could put them out in order to prevent an inferno. And if they don't, then that wildfire would be the last one ever. So long story short, Sage just compared their mission to a game of whack-a-mole to stop the apocalypse. Then Forge went on to say, all their powers have limits, even the Omegas. And that is why he drafted this specific team, because his mutation stated that this was the team that would fix the issues. But see, that wasn't initially true, because Sage pointed out that Nori was pulled from 2 missions ago and wasn't a part of his intel. And speaking of Nori, she immediately called out for the rest of her team as they passed over a destroyed city. And as they traveled, both Rachel and Betsy pointed out how they could sense so much pain coming from down below. Then Forge went on to say that the satellite comms are scrambled, which means they have no eyes and no telemetry. And to make things worse, Forge's analog states that this terrible event isn't the fracture, because the real fracture is 100 miles away. But regardless of whether this event was a fracture event or not, Nori wasn't about to sit back and do nothing. At first, Forge tried to stop her, because it wasn't the mission, and went as far as to say that once they were done dealing with the fracture, then they could return to help. But see, like I said before, Nori wasn't one for games, because she was at the Hellfire Gala when Orcus attacked, and she was also there to witness what they did to Orcus in return, and she would never allow a loss of life on that level to happen again if she could help it. So just like that, Nori leaped into battle as the others watch on from their jet. And as they watched, Sage stated that this was going to be a problem, but Forge assumed that she was talking about Nori's safety, because he stated that she'll be fine. Because he upgraded her gauntlets and made them smaller and more efficient, which would allow her to access more power now and have finer control. But that was when Sage corrected him and said she wasn't talking about Nori, but instead, she was talking about NUKLO. Now NUKLO was once an American named Robert Frank Jr., who was the son of 2 World War II heroes by the name of Whizzer and Miss America. When he was born, he was discovered to be a mutant with the ability to accelerate his growth. He also had esoteric energy generation and enhanced strength and durability. But one of his setbacks was that he had the mental development of a toddler despite being an adult. Now, on several occasions, NUKLO was known to have fought against the Avengers to a standstill, until eventually he got captured and sent to Project Pegasus for treatment and study. But several years ago, he popped up as an operative of the Penance Council, but when he returned, he had an adult mind and body. Now, to everyone else, it was clear that he was the fracture they came to stop, but Forge was insisting that he was not, because according to his analog, the fracture was still ahead of them. But strange enough, NUKLO was reading as connected to the fracture by his analog. So with that small connection plain to see, Forge was forced to send his team into action. And the first to make contact was Tank as he dropped from their ship straight on NUKLO's head. And the impact of that attack was so tough that Tank managed to bring the Golden Giant down. But only for a short time, because within moments NUKLO was on the attack, but Tank was one step ahead of him as he dodged the first blow, and then delivered a series of additional blows to NUKLO's face. So as he went in on the Golden Man, Tank seemed to have had the upper hand, until NUKLO responded with a thunderous backhand that sent Tank flying back. But as Tank flew, Rachel and Betsy caught sight of him, and Betsy told Rachel to go after Tank while she rushed NUKLO. And with a jab of her blade, Betsy ran it clean through his body, but that wasn't even enough to stop the giant, because just like what he did to Tank, NUKLO managed to get the upper hand, and was moments away from sealing the deal until Rachel showed up. And the first thing Rachel did was launch a psi-based attack with Betsy at her side, but once again, NUKLO had a counter for that. Within his mind, he had mental blockers in the form of the Avengers. And just like that, the psychic antibodies weren't playing at all because they just started to beat on Rachel as if she was nothing. And she was moments away from being done for until Betsy showed up. So with the antibodies defeated, both Rachel and Betsy arrived at NUKLO's core, which took the shape of the Avengers Mansion. So while that was going down, we learned from Sage that the psychics were able to hold him still for the moment, but she still had a feeling that something was off. And after further analysis, Sage went on to say, Project Pegasus records show NUKLO's energy is extra-dimensional, not atomic, so because of that, Sage believes if they can disrupt it enough to stop him, then they can get on with closing the fracture before it is too late. Now with that established, we then get a conversation between Betsy and Rachel, and during their exchange, we find out that the two women don't feel safe with Forge in their minds. Now Betsy made the argument that Sage was able to trust him, but see that wasn't enough for Rachel because she was still convinced that it was a bad idea to give Forge free range. And then she went on to ask about Tank, because whenever she entered his mind, all she ended up getting was static. Now this prompted her to wonder if he was even organic, because like we all know, Forge could build anything he wants, so what is stopping him from building his own person? So as the two women opened yet another door, they stumbled upon a baby version of NUKLO, because apparently someone manipulated his core and made him into a child and forced his mind to regress using a strange symbol. And as soon as they noticed that, NUKLO's core woke up and let out a yell in both the psychic world and the real world. So with all chaos breaking loose, Forge immediately called in for Surge's help, because while they were analyzing NUKLO they noticed that electric attacks could defeat him. And when we pick up with Nori, we find her helping the people in need. And via the comm system, Forge stated that he needed her help, that he needed her to charge up and head his way. Now at first Nori asked what the fracture was, to which Forge replied by saying, Tank is down, and Betsy and Rachel are in real trouble. So with conflict in Nori's heart, she shot back by saying she was still helping survivors and there were so many. But see, to Forge that was irrelevant because things were going to get a lot worse for a lot more people if she didn't come back and help close the fracture. Now this is not to say that Forge doesn't understand the need to help the few, it's just sometimes one has to focus on saving the world. And not only that, but he also understands that Nori has never been on a team like this, because they are not there for show, but instead are there for the win. Which means nobody may see them, and nobody will even know they were there, and from everyone else's perspective, they are just ghosts. And the way they know that they won is by knowing the world is still spinning. And with that said, Forge jumped out of the jet alongside Sage and went straight in for the attack. Following that speech, Nori came in like a burst of lightning and clashed into NUKLO's chest and brought the golden giant down. But sadly enough, Nori's first strike wasn't strong enough, for the Titan let out yet another powerful roar that knocked everyone to the ground, and this time, they were all out cold. And on the last panel, we see Tank walking out from the woods and standing alone before the golden giant, and with that said this issue comes to an end. Now down in the comment section below let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.